let's start with introducing myself. So I'm Vitaly. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Adapti. It's been a while since I ran a previous webinar, so it may be a little bit awkward this time, but I think it's going to be fun still. So thank you for joining and thank you for downloading the ebook. I've spent with the team, we spent a lot of time to build this ebook, and we hope you're going to find it interesting and useful. So this webinar will be a reasonable expansion of what you read in the ebook, and I will go deeper into some aspects that I think is important when you launch an application, and especially when you make some first steps to scale it from 1,000 to 10,000 MRR. Just to get a bit more credibility here, so we at Adapti, we try to develop a service where we'll help everyone in the market. So we help small indie developers and all the way to the largest subscription publishers that I personally know in the world. And I do have one of the really cool case study where an application called Karma scaled from 300 to almost 10,000 MRR in less than a year, which I think is doable for almost every software engineer who wants to start doing subscription business. And we currently work with almost 10,000 applications. All of them use subscriptions, and I chat with customers almost single week. And most of our customers, like 80 to 90%, are small applications, like less than 20K per month. So I think we have quite a representative statistics to give some advices. And in total, we track over $1 billion in subscription revenue per year, which also, I believe, can get some credibility to our advices. So if you missed something that I talked about, or you want to see it later, this webinar will be recorded and we will send it to everyone who joined it. We also will send some additional materials during the webinar session. First of all, it will be a payable testing checklist. It's absolutely free. You don't need to enter any information, and we just try to combine the most important subscription hacks and maybe small advices that you want to go before going live with your paywalls. And at the end, we'll reveal one more additional bonus that we want to show to community to chat more and know more about your problems. So we'll reveal it right at the end. So let's go closer to the business. So we talk about growing your application from 1,000 to 10,000 MRR per month. So MRR, extremely straightforward. It's a number of active subscribers multiplied by the monthly subscription price. And for simplicity, let's assume we have a mobile application where we sell only monthly subscription for $10. In that case, quite obvious, to reach 10K, we need 1,000 of active subscribers who pay you $10 in a particular month. In reality, I know that this example is a little bit more synthetic. So in reality, you don't have, like, you never get exactly $10 per month from a subscriber. You need to pay Apple tax or Google tax or whatever. And you rarely sell nowadays monthly subscriptions. You normally sell weekly subscriptions, or you sell yearly subscriptions, or even 3-month subscriptions. So it's not that often that you sell monthly. But still, for simplicity reason, let's use monthly, just because it's easier to calculate and build a financial model. I'm going to make a short demo, and this spreadsheet is available in the chat right now, and it's also available in the ebook. But I think this is the most important part of the webinar, is to understand that you have quite a big financial goal and how to try to split and simplify the goal so you can iterate it, right? Because when I see founders who just start building the application, it may seem impossible because getting 1,000 subscribers, it looks a little bit off because you don't know how they're going to churn. You don't know how many subscribers, like it's hard to set up the correct pace of the acquisition. So I'm gonna reshare my screen, and I'm going to share the spreadsheet that again is available in the chat and try to explain the simple subscription financial model. So let's start with this left top corner. So let's say we sell again monthly subscription for $10. Again, in your case, use it as a basic spreadsheet. And then if you sell weekly subscriptions, you can adjust it because we can just basically multiply a weekly subscription price by 4 or go scale down with yearly subscription. So this spreadsheet is adjustable. And also, if you sell and you normally sell multiple subscriptions on your payroll, like you sell a combination of weekly, monthly, lifetime, or yearly, or whatever, you can basically do all this kind of analysis, just a bit more complicated. But again, it's for simplicity, it's important to understand the core. So at first, you need to know the subscription price. And then you need to know the retention rate. So basically, you want to know the number of subscribers who retain using your service. This is crucially important to build a financial model. So at activation, you have 100% of people who pay to you. And then I just got this simple model where for the first renewal, you lose 50% of people. Then for the second renewal, only 40% left, then 30%, and so on. So you can know retention rate either from your own application, you can calculate it yourself, you can find it in Adaptee or in other services. It doesn't really matter. So you need to find it somewhere. Or you can use benchmarks. We do provide free benchmarks where we calculate the retention rate across multiple ad verticals and aggregate it. So again, just find it somewhere. Then if we know the subscription price, one more important thing here is that this price is a final price that you get to your bank account as a developer. So in reality, again, this number would be different. It could be like $6.99 or $7.99 or whatever. So you need to adjust it to Apple tax and to VAT if you sell it in Europe. Then knowing retention rate and LTV a price, we can calculate an LTV of a particular renewal, just simply multiplying one by another. And then if we summarize it, we can understand the LTV of a particular renewal. So if we sum it for 12 months, we can get an LTV for 1 year, which could be an extremely important metric for you to understand if you're going to start using paid user acquisition. It's a little bit out of scope for this webinar, but still you want to understand if you get a paid subscriber, how much money does one subscriber bring in a reasonable time frame? So we can see the LTV curve, how it grows, how it goes down, how it flattens, and so on. And if you open this spreadsheet, if you play with these numbers, basically with the retention rate and subscription price, you can see how it changes and how fast it grows. Then the second part. So let's assume we acquire some amount of subscribers every month. So this is a variable. Let's say it's like 270. Then I can build a super simple cohort analysis and see how they retain over 12-month period. So basically, let's say today is January, and I acquired 270 people in January. Then in February, I just simply multiply it by my retention rate. I will have a half of them, then 40% of them, and then so on and so on. And I can do this for each month. So basically for February, for March, and so on. And so I have these cohorts. If I take these cohorts for subscribers, if I multiply them by subscription price, so basically I just take this number and multiply it by 10, I can get a revenue cohort. And using these two cohorts, I can understand two really important metrics. So the first one is actually our monthly recurrent revenue, because monthly recurrent revenue is just a sum of my revenue cohorts, just like this one. While the number of active subscribers is a sum of a cohort row, just like this one. So simply calculating and summarizing it line by line, we can see that if you acquire 270 subscribers every month, and if you get this retention rate, you're gonna get to 10K in 1 year. Maybe it looks a little bit too complicated, but in reality, it's super simple. So if, for example, I say, all right, now I want to acquire, I don't know, 500 subscribers every month. Then you get all these things recalculated, and we do get another number of monthly recurrent revenue. So yeah, just feel free to copy this spreadsheet and use it as you wish. And you can also see that like the top of the funnel is extremely important, because if you change it from 50%, let's say, to 40%, the difference could be quite big, right? Because because normally it's not like 40-40, but it goes from 40 to 30 and so on. So normally if you reduce the amount of people who pay you at the beginning, then it dramatically affects the rest of the funnel. So it's really important to keep working on retention rate. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. So now we know how many subscribers we want to acquire. And if we think a bit deeper about the growth formula for getting the actual MRR, we will have two components. First, we need to acquire some amount of subscribers every month. And the second component is that we want to retain them, because subscription economy normally doesn't pay off on the first payment. So you want to retain your subscribers as long as you can. Let's start with acquisition. So we know the goal. Let's say it's roughly 300 subscribers per month in this super simple model. And how are you going to do it? The answer is as cheap as you can. So if you're a developer and you don't have a lot of experience with paid user acquisition or performance marketing, the best you can do is just to start with ASO. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert at all in ASO, but there are a couple of really super simple and important things that you can do to work on it. First, you need to understand the general concept. So basically, ASO is a really high quality traffic that you get directly from the App Store. And people literally enter some keyword, let's say VPN, then in the App Store, they see many applications, and for some reason, they download your application. So this is a super high quality and targeted traffic, which is free. We also sent in the chat two links to our previous webinars. One is with AppTweak and another with other way around. So if you want to know more about ASO, just watch the recording. But if you want to know the basic stuff, use some ASO analytical tools, again, like AppTweak or ASO Mobile or AppFollow or many others. Try to understand your keyword semantic and build it as early as you can, because I see quite often that people build application for keywords. So they start not with a problem, but they start with a keyword. And this could be a really good strategy to build multiple applications. So you basically you master ASO in a way how you research cheap and high frequently keywords on a regular basis, and then just build super simple applications for it. So for example, it's like, I think it's impossible just to be #1 for VPN keyword, but if it's like, I don't know, VPN in Brazil, for this longer keyword, you can be #1. So researching a keyword and the right keyword is extremely important. You can use competitors' keywords if they're not under copyright. But even if it's under copyright, the App Store will just ask you to remove it or so. So it shouldn't be a big problem. You need to localize it because everyone tries to target the US market for obvious reasons. Like you don't need to pay VAT. People tend to retain much more in the US due to banking system and so on. So everyone tries to target US, but you can do something different. You can try to localize for another markets. And I saw cases where an application optimized for Portuguese language in Brazil, and now the Portuguese, the Brazil is #1 country in terms of LTV for them, and ASO is the #1 channel. So it's not always obvious to stick only with English. You may try to consider localizing it, and it's pretty cheap. So especially using like Grok or ChatGPT, it's super easy to localize keywords. You just need to research it really carefully. Another thing is a product page optimization. So basically, if you go to the App Store and you search an application for a particular keyword, you can install the application right from the search. So you don't need to go to the app page. So optimizing your logo, title, and first screenshot is extremely important. You don't need to optimize that much a description. It can affect ASO, I guess, but optimizing the first screenshot and a logo is super important. And companies like, as far as I know, like Split Metrics, for example, they can even help with it. Yeah, that's all you need to know. Again, work on ASO is cheap and it can really help. So if you get some traction and if you get a bit more revenue, you can find alternative channels. So I would rank the second channel is an organic social growth. Now, TikTok influencing is extremely profitable, but you need to somehow figure out how to do it. So I guess you know applications like Kali or RiskGPT and others, and they really buy super cheap traffic using TikTok influencers. So basically, if you transform it to CPM, like cost per 1,000 views, then sometimes you can pay like 100 or $200 to influencer and get 1 million of views, which is like very profitable. Yeah, I saw a comment that the SOA isn't very important. Users spend around 7 seconds to decide to download the app or not. Games around 13 seconds. Yeah, like the SOA is very important. That's true. Then the next stage to after influencing is paid performance. To be honest, I know 0 people who started doing paid performance before they got either some revenue, a good amount of revenue, or before they got an investment. So basically, even in our simple model, we calculated that 1 year LTV is roughly $40, right? In some applications, it could be $50 or $60 and so on. And when you do performance marketing, you want to be break even, meaning that your LTV, your 1 year LTV is equal to your customer acquisition cost. So basically, you need to have enough cash, liquid cash, to keep the company working in 1 year, right? If you're ready to buy a customer for 1 year LTV, which is very expensive. So if you want to acquire 300 subscribers per month, each for $40, you need to spend at least 12,000 every month. So which is more than a revenue in the first month. So you can consider using paid traffic, but again, I wouldn't start with it. And probably the good thing to start thinking about paid is after you cross 10, maybe even 30, maybe even 50K per month. So you have enough budget for experiments. Because experimenting with creatives in different platforms, not only Meta, but also TikTok or Snapchat or whatever you buy subscribers now, is very important. I had a conversation with one paid user acquisition manager, and he told me that in the past 4 months, they tried 1,600 creatives. 1,600. This is 400 creatives per month. So they've spent like roughly 1 million per month, but it's still a lot. So yeah, don't go to performance unless you find a product market fit and you know that the app works. Um, a quick question here about the LTV. How to calculate LTV accurately enough to make sure marketing campaigns are profitable? That's quite a good question. So to be honest, like there are two approaches. So the approach number one is basically use this super simple model in the Excel. And even the largest companies that I know, they use this simple approach. And so the more data you have, the better you make a prediction just using a retention rate. And that's it. So it works really well as you scale. The problem is when you just start, and when you start, you don't know very well your retention rate, subscription retention rate, and it's very volatile. So it can go up and down quite significant. So in this case, well, the most reliable way is just to wait. So you need to get some statistical significant data and well, to get your own data and build model based on your data. But another approach is just to make your bet, because I don't know any super reliable way. In Adaptive, we have slightly different approach because we have a lot of data about many applications. We can use machine learning. So we basically we can have a generalized knowledge about retention rate or subscription retention, and we can apply it to a particular application. So what we try to do is to help indie developers solve a problem of a cold start, where we help them predict the outcome of a paywall experiment or an early acquisitional channel as soon as possible. So yeah, just summarize two approaches. First, use a retention rate, just like I showed in a Google Sheet, or yeah, build some machine learning model, which is much harder. Um, can you only know your exact LTV when your company is 1 year old, or not necessarily? So it's quite obviously, right? So if your application is less than 1 year old, it's quite hard to know 1 year LTV. But you can extrapolate it. So basically, um, in a case of monthly subscriptions, as you scale and as you wait, you know the retention rate for the first renewal, for the second renewal, for the third renewal, and then you can use benchmarks to extrapolate it. It's going to be quite accurate because first three conversion rates, first three renewal rates are the most important ones because they're in the top of the funnel. So yeah, you need to extrapolate, but the accuracy could be quite good. And if you don't use paid channels, then the cost of mistake is not that big. Because if you use paid channels, like 10 or 20% difference in prediction could be very bad because you can buy with a negative ROI. But if you use ASO and some cheap acquisitional channels, 10 or 20% difference wouldn't kill the company. Yeah. Okay. So we spoke about the acquisition. So now we can build a plan on month-over-month acquisition basis. And now we need to chat about the retention because you got a number of subscribers and now you want to retain them as long as you can. Obviously, there's no simple way to increase the LTV instantly, and there's no direct path how to do it. So there are some directions how you can try to do it. First, quite obvious. Improve the product quality, find product market fit, find loyal audience. So make sure people actually use the product that you've built. I personally use some quite very specific niche products like flight tracker, for example. Flight tracker is a really nice niche where people retain for a very long time. Um, just a really good example how they build this application for ASO and for real usage. So I believe you can find more. Improving the product quality is not fast, so you need to invest, and you're going to see results in half a year, maybe even more, depending on the speed of implementation. You will need to sweat a lot because you will need to chat with customers. You need to ship, so it's hard. But the good thing is that, yeah, you can improve the LTV, but you cannot go down. It's really unlikely. So if you improve the product quality, it's really unlikely that you will increase the churn in existing subscribers. So if people liked your product and you keep improving it, it's unlikely that like more people will churn. Then we have two more risky things. The first one is to optimize payment screens. So it will help you to get, depending on your stack, if you use tools like ours, or if you use even like Firebase for remote config, you can implement new payment screens really fast. And you don't need to code for it, so it's relatively easy, again, depending on your stack. But the impact on churn could be very high. So, for example, if you've been using a cheap subscription and it was working relatively well, and then you say, all right, now I'm going to increase the price 2 or 3 times. Makes sense. But in that case, your impact on churn could be very high because more people will churn at the top of the funnel, so people will not retain, and the LTV will go down. I really like the term, which is called elasticity curve. Sounds a little bit awkward, but still. So elasticity curve is something like understanding LTV versus subscription price. So basically, sometimes you can increase the price by 10, 20%, so just a little bit. But the LTV will go much higher because it's like a retained revenue. And the last thing that I think is maybe even easier to implement and less risky is to improve the onboarding flow. The reason about onboarding is because 80% of all purchases and all subscribers are made during onboarding. So basically, if you want to optimize one single placement in your application where people can pay, you need to optimize onboarding and onboarding paywall. That's going to be enough for a very long time. So speed of implementation is relatively quick. The required effort is relatively low compared to improving the product quality. And the churn impact is also quite low because, because you don't change the price. Before this webinar, we did an analysis on what does affect payable conversions the most. Quite obvious that the pricing could give you a really big uplift. We see almost double. Again, depending on how you play with it, how you show it, the general UX feeling of your payable could affect, but much smaller discounts. So still all these things, especially for Christmas, like save 75%, save 90%, and so on. Easy way to get some small bonus. Banners also work really nicely, and copy and the animation. So things like continue or subscribe or so on, they could affect. So it's worth trying, but according to our experience and to what I hear and see from customers I personally chat with, pricing is still the most sensitive and the most important one to try. We have one more question in the chat. So I guess it's about onboarding, so I'm gonna uh, scroll back. Does that mean that you should try to get users to pay in the onboarding or make the onboarding very valuable and good, which will lead to better conversion eventually? Yes, because again, what we see that um, onboarding is a place where people subscribe even before trying the product. So most people subscribe before actually using your application. Sounds really weird and counterintuitive, but this is how it works. Goddamn knows why, but it works. And it's not like 20 or 30%, it's 80% of people subscribe during onboarding. So making a really nice, a really strong first impression is very, very important. So working on your, and it even starts with your app icon. So having a good app icon, having a good title, having a really nice first session, um, could give you a lot of revenue very fast. Can you please share a spreadsheet link again here that you showed early? It's right on in the top of the chat, so you can just scroll up, please, and you're gonna find it. What about trial for a free trial for weekly subscriptions? Does it make sense to get a free trial period for it? I've seen it in many apps, but I'm not sure if it's a good idea. Uh, it depends. So I would say it's very seasonal. Sometimes we have an IC that it's like a trend. So sometimes for some reason you get a higher LTV for free trial subscriptions. Sometimes I see apps having a more LTV from non-trial subscriptions. So it's a bit hard to say how it's going to work for your application. But I think it's like if you only use ASO, right? So if this traffic is mostly organic, which is high quality and hyper targeted, then I think it makes sense to use free trial just because people specifically found your application to try to use it for core features. Um, but if you mostly use paid traffic, I think it also makes sense to use free trials because you want to post back data back to ad network, and because of changes that Apple made to attribution, it's hard to send like retained purchases. So, like it depends, but I would use free trials. So I see it works quite okay now. So there are a bit more things. We're going to share a link to a payload testing checklist. Again, you don't need to enter your email or any other details. Just feel free to open the Notion page and copy it. It's a little generic, but still, I see a lot of people find it useful. It's just checklist, so you know you don't do any super weird things. And hopefully, it's going to work you to yeah, to optimize paywalls faster. Summarizing on how we can help with all these things. So we try to do as many things for developers and for marketing managers, maybe even more for marketing managers as we can, and to make things simple and super fast to integrate. So one of the things that I really like is our native payable builder. It's super highly customizable. It's native, so you can implement it for iOS, Android, and all other SDKs. It's going to work just like you coded. We invested tons of time to make it to make it cool. You can use localizations, so you can optimize the top of the funnel with it. We do have a refund saver, which is a like an exceptional feature, really, because if you use it, you're going to make statistically, you're going to make more money that companies pay for using our service, which is really cool. So basically, We've tested this feature for the largest customers, and they instantly get more money than they pay to us. Super nice. And then, yeah, all other features, including analytics, SDK for subscriptions, and so on. To summarize, two things that I think you need to remember if you want to try to build a successful subscription application while keep working, let's say full time, or just having some pet project that you want to try to scale. Try to get a cheap as cheap as you can, like acquire customers as cheap as you can. Don't go to paid, don't go to Google, just work on ASO, and that's it. So just try to make a really, really nice product page, hire freelance designer who's going to help you, and try to really deeply understand the ASO. Because again, I think you can pay like, I don't know, $100 or so for ASO tool, but you can really deeply analyze it. Yeah, and second, improve the product quality and work on the sales funnel at the same time. Because improving the product quality, like it's hard, right? So sometimes you can get stuck, you don't know what to start with, but you can find it using KSO. So yeah, I think you need to work both on improving the product quality and improving the sales funnel at the same time, so you get some kind of a reward for what you do. When you want to improve the sales funnel, always start with the top of the funnel. Start with improving the first conversion rate, then the first activation with onboardings and first payment screens, then the first renewal, and then it's going to be like it's out of your control mostly if you don't improve the product. We want to help some of you, and we want to chat with more people. So we have free audit sessions where we just take your payables and roast them with you. We're going to do it for fun, just for free, just to see how you think about it, what we can help with. Again, not trying to sell anything, just to know you as, indie developers a bit deeper. So feel free to scan this QR code and book a free audit of your payables now. Yeah, and that's it. Happy to answer any of your questions. Feel free to write them to the chat. Okay, I'll have one more question. I've got the question. So the app will become better with time. Does this mean as more feature comes, you can increase the price? And should you be cheaper at start? To be honest, I think like you should never dump the price unless you're backed by some VCs. And at least this is my approach. So like you probably want to acquire the most loyal audience at start, and the most loyal people will pay you more. So I would, to be honest, start with more expensive pricing, reasonably expensive pricing, or matching it with a direct competitor rather than just going 5 times cheaper. Just match the price, find the most loyal audience. I would even chat with them, to be honest, and see, hey, like, why do you use my application? How do you do it? Like, which problems do you solve? And this kind of stuff. Just try to know them a little bit better. At least this is how I try to do it. And yeah, and then I would start with matching the price with a competitor, or again, just maybe even a little bit higher at first, and then maybe introduce some introductory offers, like pay-as-you-go introductory offer or a free trial offer, or maybe experiment with a shorter subscriptions or this kind of stuff. But especially in B2B business, to be honest, I've never seen a good example where someone starts with a super cheap price and then became like a really big player. It's very unlikely, um, especially in a subscription. Yeah, I saw some links for calculating A/B testing sample size. Yeah, it's super, super important. we also try to integrate it in the system, so you don't need to use third-party tools. But now I would advise you to use it. Um, the problem with A/B testing for paywalls when you're small, and the reason why I didn't mention it a lot is because when you're small, you don't have a lot of traffic, right? So it's unlikely you're gonna have a statistical significance very quickly. So, but you still want to experiment, right? So you still want to understand, hey, like maybe I'm gonna switch to yearly subscriptions and gonna get a higher LTV. So I would say in this case, don't do split testing unless you have really good amount of traffic. So in this case, just try to do a sequence testing when you tried one thing, then change to another, and then see the result or something like this. Or you can do split testing still, but be very careful with the statistics. So calculate it really carefully. That's what I would suggest. Maybe even try to chat with people in different cohorts and just ask them. Um, One more question. Do you have the data which type of subscriptions to use to get more revenue? I wish to have this. I mean, have a for a week monthly real subscription to compare for user to or offer subscription according to my business model. Maybe I didn't get the question. So, could you specify the question? Oh, you mean like which subscription combination is the most profitable, right? Okay, yeah. So we did this analysis. If you go to our website and if you download our state of an app subscriptions report from the previous year, I think we did some analysis somewhere at the end about the most profitable combinations of subscriptions. But the idea here is quite straightforward. So you want to combine short subscriptions with super long subscriptions. So that's why you see people selling like weekly plus yearly, but never weekly plus monthly. So when no one does it. So yeah, you wanna sell these very different subscriptions, and that's what I can say from the top of my head. Yeah, so we now have the link right in the chat. Please share your opinion about usage of hard paywalls without possibility to close, but with free trial subscriptions. I'm good. Sorry. I think it works. It works quite often. I also see that you can add timer. So basically, you can make it hard for the first 10 seconds and then show the close button. Works good. So, and again, it's maybe a little bit similar to using a free trial in general because it's a little seasonal. So sometimes we see soft paywalls working better, we see harder paywalls working better. So it depends. But again, if I would build an application, I would start with the most hardcore option. No, only hard paywall with free trials. That's it. The pricing is matching to competitors. That's what I would do, and I would chat with a lot of customers. Does P2BB means probability to be the best? It's our internal metric that we use in Adaptive. Does P2BB in A/B testing tool includes the LTV of each plan in the calculation? It's a good question. I cannot answer this from the top of my head, but P2BB is calculated quite. It's like this metric is not something that we just coded. So this metric it uses machine learning to make this prediction, and I cannot tell if it uses each plan, but probably does because it shows you the probability of the whole paywall, right? So it's not only for a particular subscription; it's for the whole paywall. So I assume that we use it for each plan in a calculation, but I can double check. For A/B testing, How many paid users should I have before experimenting with it? Um, I would say that you don't need a number of, you probably mean like how many new subscribers you need to acquire per period of time to use it. Um, if you wanna if you wanna get statistical significance, which is cool, but it's hard, I would say you roughly need 100-ish subscribers per given period of time, because this is where maybe like the lower bound, the absolute lower bound would be 50 subscribers to acquire. The reasonable like rate starting from 100 subscribers per period of time. It could be 100 per week, 100 per month, something like this. 100 per month should be enough if you can wait a month for to get statistical significance. But again, sometimes you need to move quickly, especially if it's your pet project. I would just wait for a month. If you're in a hurry, I would just like yeah, I would just make decisions not based on statistical significance. I know it's bad, and like basically when you make such decisions, you work with your intuition and not with data. This is what I would do if I would be in a rush. If I'm not in a rush, I can just wait. How does Apple feel about showing special offer paywall after the regular one if the user closed it? Uh, I know nothing about it, but I think it's against Apple's rules. So basically, I think you're not allowed to show it, but you need to double check it. Not sure. I'm gonna answer the question for Diego. When do you think is the time to do paid ads? So the time to do paid ads is when you can afford it. So if you have a lot of, well, first, when you can afford it, uh, from the cash point of view, which could be even from day zero. But I think the most important thing is to understand what you do, because I saw a lot of companies, even some of my friends who thought that using paid is like a magic pill, right? Because yeah, like I can show my application to many people and they're gonna download it, and so. But then in reality, paid marketing is very hard and it's extremely unpredicted, and you never know, like you very depend on algorithms, right? Because Meta or Google, they can change something inside how they rank your ad, how they do bidding and this kind of stuff. And so if you're super dependent on it, it's kind of risky. So you need to know how it works internally. You want to have like some kind of customer success or management and so on. So you want to have a strong team to work with the paid ads, not even advisor, but a full-time, strong performance marketing manager or growth manager to help you to get it started. Um, for example, I just can disclose a little bit. We've been trying to make a paid that works for us in Adapti for a year, for even more, I guess, for 2 years, and it didn't work. So it was super hard. It's easier for subscription apps, obviously, than for B2B services, but still. So you want to have enough cash, you want to have a strong team. So when you have enough cash, it depends on your background. You may raise something, right? So you may have your savings, or you can grow your application that big that you just have enough cash flow which you can reinvest. So there, like, use it when you're ready. So that's what I can say. That yeah, don't use it because you think it's a magic pill and it's going to be easy. It will not be easy. It will be hard. You're going to cry a lot because you're going to spend a lot of money, and if you're not preparing to lose, I don't know, like five-figure amount of money per month, it will be very painful. Um, okay, one last question, and that's it. what if instead of making my app paid to begin with, I started step by step? Make it free first. If people use it, make it one-time payment, then make it subscription, assuming no high cost to sustain the app. Again, I would do it vice versa. So I would start with a reasonable high price because when people are ready to pay, and if you see that they use it, then you go down the funnel. So basically, you find the most loyal audience, you can chat with them and see what they use, how they use the product, and so on. And then you can make the product more accessible. Maybe I'm thinking more about B2B style businesses, but it sounds reasonable. So you start with finding the most loyal audience. If it doesn't exist, uh, like your best, if it doesn't exist, if there is no product market fit, if there is no loyal audience, your best bet would be to be a professional in paid, right? Because you will need to, well, you will need to find out on how to acquire customers on scale and then make them pay as quickly as possible just to get the fastest payback. On this scale, let's say 1K per month, you want to find a loyal audience, then scale it to less loyal audience, and then scale it to even less loyal audience. So I would start with a hard paywall, free trial, some reasonable good pricing, and then go down as you scale. That's what I would do. Cool. It was the last question. Thank you so much for coming. Hope it was interesting. We'll send the recording soon. And yeah, have a good day. Thank you.